Hi, I'm New World Now podcast host Kim Corbin, and I recently had the great pleasure of sitting down to talk with Yvonne Tolley about her new book, Breaking Up with Busy, Real-Life Solutions for Overscheduled Women. I hope that you'll enjoy the interview. You had quite a health scare that inspired you to do this work. Will you tell us about that?
I will. In fact, it took me a while to even share that story because in Breaking Up with Busy, I talk about the different profiles of women, and one of them is the perfectionist. And I certainly have a lot of that part in my life about always making sure everything's done well all the time beyond expectation. So I didn't even talk about this happening until it happened big time, and I ended up in the back of an ambulance because I had what I thought was a heart attack. And my young daughter at the time, was in the car, so imagine how traumatic it was for her. And what was interesting about this was I remember laying in the back of the ambulance thinking, how can this happen? First of all, I don't have time for it. I don't have time for this to be happening. And how could somebody like me, a positive thinking, meditating, organic eating health nut, end up in the back of an ambulance possibly having a heart attack? So it was a real wake-up call for me. And when I got to the hospital and realized it was a panic attack, and when the doctor said, I see this all the time, it happens to women all the time, as I say in Breaking Up with Busy, I was offended when he said that, but curious, because if he was seeing it from a professional standpoint of a lot of women suffering from this type of panic attack, anxiety, which was what I was experiencing at the time, I thought there's going to be more to this story. And I had been working with women for well over 20 years that were bringing to me this same story as well. And that's really what started this whole ball rolling. I went on and I became a master neurolinguistic practitioner, which really helped me with the mind piece of all of this, and then brought those studies back into my work and started helping women move to a place of happiness and wellness through not only resetting their mindset, which is also in the book, but also to get to a place to really start to connect that it's not what you're doing, it's what's going on up here, the thinking part of it. If you get that straight and that clear, then everything else in your life will be clear as well. So we can stop doing this over excessive busyness all the time once we get the thinking cap on straight, if you will. And that's what I got from that experience. That was my eye-opener, and I thought, I've got to come up with solutions that are going to help me, number one, and how I can help other women at the same time. So, yeah, it was a blessing.
That's really interesting about the thinking piece of it, because I am a busy woman and I honestly love being busy and like accomplishing and getting things done.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily about not being a really productive person in the world. Is it more how we think about that? Is that what you mean?
I'm glad that you asked that question, Kim, because the one thing about the book is that this isn't just a busyness kind of a thing. Oh, I'm so busy and I've got this to do and that to do. It's not about that. It's about what it's gone from doing things or a pastime or a part of the day, like, oh, this is a busy afternoon for me, to it being a culture. It's an ethos. It's a way that we live now, a constant on all the time, constant connected with other things all the time, which is great. I love being productive too. There's a sense of a real accomplishment to that, and I enjoy that. It's when we start to get to a place in our lives, and this is the difference between just being kind of having a busy day to being an overscheduled woman, the OSW, and that is we get to a place in our life where busy just becomes normal. The things we used to love to do now become a burden and a have to and another thing on our list. And it's the idea that if we're not busy, then we're not enough. If we're not doing it all, 100%, we have the lion's share of taking care of the household. And on top of that, most of us are out working outside of the home as well. Maybe not, but most of us are. So now we have this idea that we have to do all of these things all of the time just right. No skipping corners, no making any adjustments for anything. It has to be done well, and we put ourselves at the end of that list. That's okay if we make that choice. But when we start to have health issues, when the anxiousness and the anxiety start to occupy every day or most days, when we start to feel depressed, when we start to disconnect with the things we once enjoyed, when we stop taking care of ourselves first because we're putting other people first and we start to resent it, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's what I was starting to see. And that's no judgment on any women in this position. Something's got to give. And I say in the book, something's got to give, and I'm tired of it being me. It's time to bring some boundaries. That's all I'm trying to share with women, is to give them some boundaries.
In Breaking Up with Busy, you talk about different traps that women have a tendency to fall into. Will you give us a couple examples of those?
You know, probably the most common one is being all to everybody. It's that idea that we have to be all to everyone all the time. And what we have to do is set better boundaries around that, because it's okay to be, of course, it's important to be helpful. It's important to be of service, but we have to find a better boundary on that. And I always say, my mother used to always say, you can't clean up someone else's backyard until you clean up your own. You got to take care of yourself first. As a former flight attendant, and when the mask came down, you better believe I was going to put it on me first before I put it on a passenger. So we have to remember to take care of ourselves first. That's really important. So that's one of the traps that we get into, is we forget about that. We get very focused on taking care of all this other business of the day, of the week, of the month. And what we have to realize is that it's going to be there tomorrow. Yeah. Prioritize. Make sure that you're really aware of what's going to be important for your big picture. I talk about the big picture a lot in Breaking Up with Busy. It's important to keep that big picture in mind, because it's really easy to get swallowed into those traps, into the things that are just right in front of us, rather than what's my big picture? What is my need and want connection? How am I going to make those two work? Yeah, and then another trap, of course, is keeping up. And social media, technology, particularly social media, has made that a real challenge for a lot of people. The comparison game is just really front and center. It's so easy now to say, well, that person has that, or that person is doing that, because we're inundated with it as far as our culture goes now with technology. And it's a huge distraction as well. Again, it takes away from those points in the day that we can find quiet time to replenish ourselves. So that keeping up has become even bigger. There's always been the keeping up with the Joneses kind of a thing, but now it's just crosses all boundaries and barriers, that everybody is continually comparing themselves. And when we're consistently looking out, we need to turn that focus back within, because that's really where we make the change first.
Yeah. And if you were in an elevator with someone and you had 30 seconds, what would be the number one thing you would tell them to start doing now to get out of their busy, overscheduled lives?
Just one?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Slow down. Slow down. When you slow down, you can see more. When you slow down, you can clear this up. And like I say, when this is clear between the ears, everything else in life will be as well.
Yeah.
Slow down.
And do you have any other quick tips to offer those who are ready to break up with busy?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just set boundaries. Like, start to be aware of where your boundaries are, and know that it's okay to have boundaries. Boundaries are not meant to keep people out or keep things out. They're meant to keep yourself in a space and a place where you can show up, be present, and be of service to yourself and others. That's what boundaries are about. That's the most important thing. Yeah. And Breaking Up with Busy has that all through it.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries.
And what do you most hope women will take away from your book, Breaking Up with Busy?
I hope that they realize the one thing is that we don't have to be all the time, and that they're not alone in this, that we all share this, that we can help one another. When I say to you, it's okay, that's all right. You didn't get it done. No, that's not a problem. And I'm not saying that we're not trying to do our best. I'm saying that we have to know that our best, sometimes enough, just enough, good enough, is our best, and that's okay. That's okay. Kind of giving each other as women the okay. Then enough is enough.